What is up, my friend? Welcome to episode number 82 of the Anthony John Amick podcast. And this episode, man, it's kind of turned out to be more of like a fun talk show, I guess you could call that. I brought on a guy named Brad Paschal. He's essentially a digital ninja in the automotive industry. He's a huge UFC fight fan, so we just really talked about some amazing upcoming fights. We talked shop about marketing and dove into insights around how to cultivate deep relationships with people, which typically always leads to some pretty incredible opportunities. So if you're just looking for like a fun podcast where I guarantee you're going to learn something that's going to serve your life, it's going to serve your business, then sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Anthony John Amick podcast, the one and only podcast designed to help you become unstoppable in life and business. My name is Anthony John Amick. My friends call me AJ, and my goal with this podcast is to help you remember who you truly are so you can maintain your center in the chaos, embody your potential, and unlock freedom in your life and business. That being said, let's get into today's show.
All right, welcome back. Now, before I tell you about today's guest and I bring him onto the show, I wanted to introduce a thought I had. You know how like a lot of entrepreneurs, like they feel like they're constantly dragging a boulder uphill while trying to build and like scale their business. It's kind of like regardless of what they accomplish, they just kind of still feel like they're not as far along as they thought they'd be by now. Well, I want you to imagine instead, what if they could make a quantum leap to escape the internal pressure that keeps them feeling frustrated and burnt out and have like massive amounts of confidence and certainty to actually make their big visions a reality? I mean, that'd be pretty cool, right? Well, I have a free community I call Shift 101, where myself and my good friend and best-selling author, Jonathan Heston, we share weekly content all about how to create those quantum leaps. So if you're looking for a way to rewire and transform your entire way of being in less than 90 days so you can break through to a new level of freedom, purpose, and success, make sure you head on over to ajamix.com/community and hit that join button. It's absolutely free. There's a massive amount of valuable content in there. So just check it out, ajamix.com/community. With that being said, let me tell you about today's guest. His name is Brad Paschal. I first met Brad through my friend and past client, Jody Holland. I spoke at an event called GrowthCon, I think about 2 years ago, 18 months ago, something like that. The conference was in Amarillo, Texas. Brad was a speaker there. He's a really good dude, super down to earth. He's an SEO master, a digital footprint Sasquatch, and one like really incredible innovator when it comes to taking people like online so that he can actually then take them offline to then build a relationship, close the sale, and then back online for a 5-star review. He's a real wizard when it comes into online, offline, and just relationships. He is the 2016 Driving Sales Best Idea winner. He's the number 3 Volkswagen CPO Master for 2016 and Senior Account Director for Stream Companies. He's presented at leadership conferences, sales, and marketing conferences in the automotive industry, and he believes that the key to great business rests with building great relationships online, offline, and everywhere in between. And I'll tell you, if you're not in the automotive industry, I'll tell you right now, what we get into today, it will apply to any industry, especially if you're a coach or a course creator. So with that being said, let's get into today's show. Brad Paschal, welcome to the podcast, dude.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm excited to be here.
Dude, I'm excited to have you. First of all, I actually owe you a congratulations because I have not told you congratulations since you got married. So this is your like official congratulations. You're a married man. You're off the market. How's that feel?
It's already been a year, man. So
I'm way behind. I'm so fucking behind.
We just celebrated a year on August 24th, so it was awesome. We took a little trip down to South Texas and just hung out. It was great.
Awesome. And is that going well? You enjoying the married life?
Yeah, it's great, man. You know, my wife is in the car business. I'm in the car business, so we totally understand that. It's actually been pretty easy, even during COVID. I mean, that's been the worst part of the year. But other than that, everything else is good. Bought a new house in March, right before COVID hit. So awesome. Everything's going great with that.
Cool, man. Now, you're a big fight fan, like myself. We have UFC 254 coming up in about a month in October. Khabib versus Gaethje. I got to ask you, who do you got in the fight?
Yeah, so that's interesting that you bring that up because I just picked up 2 new fight posters that I had framed from Hobby Lobby. So I'm working on getting the office set up with all of the fight posters. This is an interesting one, right? With the teaser of GSP being on the coming back and fighting Khabib if he beats Gaethje, so that
Keyword
Khabib,
if. You can tell I'm already
yeah.
a little biased.
So, I think the interesting thing that's going to be is, as far as complete wrestlers that are out there, Gaethje's probably the toughest challenge that Khabib has ever faced. Now, the one knock on Gaethje is that if Khabib is able to wrestle him, he does start to get tired there in fights because he gives so much. But he's been a lot more patient lately with picking his shots, and I think striking definitely favors Gaethje. There's a lot of variables on this one. So the mental state of Khabib coming off the loss of his father. Gaethje's training up there with killers like Kamaru Usman. So you're like, all right, he has a brand new training partner that is a beast that he's training with because Kamaru moved from Florida up to elevation in Denver. So I would have to say that all the pressure's on Khabib, and he's not able to train with his teammates out at ATT or American Kickboxing Academy out in California. So I think it probably favors Gaethje a little bit more than people realize. So.
Yeah, dude, it's going to be an interesting fight. I'm so excited about the fight. And now, have you seen the tentative fight card for that fight yet?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different fights that are popping up on that fight card, which are going to be interesting. And I just lost my second monitor, so you'll have to bear with me. Can you still see me okay?
Yeah, dude. All good, bro.
Awesome, man. So that's going to be an interesting fight card. So I think that one thing that we're not talking about, right, that they're not talking about right now, is there's a lot of other fights that are going to be huge around that time, right? So you have the possibility of GSP coming back. You got Walt Harris coming back, his second fight off of his daughter. The brutal situation with his daughter. He's fighting Volkov, so that'll be a interesting fight because Volkov hasn't looked very good in the last couple of outings. And then you got Cannonier versus Whitaker, which is
fight.
It's going to be an interesting. Whitaker's taken a lot of damage lately, so I kind of lean towards Cannonier in that one. I think Walt Harris takes Volkov down and just goes through him. And then you got Dos Anjos versus Islam Makhachev, which is I think Dos Anjos is about washed up, so I think Makhachev takes that one. And those are kind of the main ones on the card.
Are you kidding me? We have Zabit versus Yair. Like, that's going to be a crazy fight.
They said that that's not official yet, though. They think they don't know if they officially put that on that card yet. So
it's rumors. Rumors have it that it shall happen. We shall see.
Now we've supposed to see that fight for like 3 different times.
Totally.
I was at the Yair fight when he hit Korean Zombie with that crazy elbow.
Yeah.
It was disheartening because I'm a big Korean Zombie fan, so I can't wait for him to fight Brian Ortega. So
it's gonna be a good fight. And there's also rumors that Tony Ferguson is fighting Dustin Poirier on that card as well.
Which would be amazing because that's going to be a barn burner, and your heart has to break for a guy like Tony Ferguson. That fight's been scheduled 5 times, and he's never got to fight Khabib, and he's such a gangster. Even though I don't really root for him, he's still just a gangster.
So good, dude. Super excited about that card. I can't wait. Even Paulo Costa and Israel Adesanya is coming up in September. I'm super excited.
The announcement this week?
No, I guess I haven't.
Oh, Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz 2 for January.
Nice.
So that'll be. I wonder if they're going to put the BMF belt back up. So that'll be an interesting one.
That will be an interesting fight. I don't really know why there's a rematch because Jorge was winning that fight, in my opinion, definitively. So, I don't know, but whatever. They'll make some good money on it.
And then I can't wait for Bryce Mitchell to fight again. So he's fighting again.
I
Pretty
love
soon.
that kid, man.
Yeah. So he got some camo shorts. So he has some best post fight interviews out there. So I'm pretty excited about seeing him fight again.
He's from Arkansas, but I believe he's fighting out of Fort Worth here, isn't he?
He fights out of Arkansas. I saw them release a I can't remember who he's fighting next, but he signed a bout agreement. I don't know if they released it yet. So it looks like he's fighting. Yeah, it didn't say who he's fighting yet, but he just got spot. Oh, Andre Feely is who he's fighting. So on October 31st on Halloween, and they just released. He got picked up by Realtree, a sponsorship by Realtree.
Nice.
So he's one of the Realtree athletes. So that's kind of interesting. First one of the UFC. So with the
good, man.
exception of Chad Mendez, who had a hunting show outside of UFC. So.
Nice, man. And then there's one other fight on the Khabib card that not a lot of people seem to be talking about, and it's since Cynthia Cavillo is fighting Lauren Murphy. Cavillo is fighting up at 125 again. She looked really good the last outing, so I'm excited to see her fight again at 125. Yeah.
She's super cool. Actually, I got an autographed Cynthia Cavillo glove here somewhere in the office. So she was really sweet when we met her, and she looked really good. And she has one of the most interesting game faces when she gets in there. She just looks real mean when she puts that game face on. So.
Yeah, dude. Awesome, dude. Well, let's talk about you. We've talked enough about fighting. So like you crushed the marketing game for auto dealerships. People who listen to this podcast, they either have a personal brand or they own a business of some sort. And your tagline is like, I'm here to help. So what does that even mean?
Yeah. So a long time ago, we kind of got to start with, my thing is wearing a baseball cap and a polo, right? And that's how I branded myself when I first came into the car business. And it was strategic. I have a Texas drawl. I'm from West Texas, which tends to have a heavier accent. I come off as, I kind of fly under the radar because of how I dress and how I talk, and I like to be underestimated. So it's a strategic underestimation because it lets people's guards down so you can really help them. So the biggest thing is anybody that calls me, regardless if they're my client at the agency that I work for or my client outside of automotive where I do some small business marketing and help, is I just help them and provide enough value that they want to do business with you. And so that's where it came out. One of our mutual friends, Paul Daly, actually created the logo that's supposed to look like two chat boxes.
Awesome.
So kind of a marketing logo. And those are also my initials. So it's kind of interesting. And then what he did on the back of it is he made me write "here to help" in my own handwriting. So he just said that it has that modern design look with that, small town Texas kid mentality. So it's basically kind of an ode to my dad and how I was raised. Is like, hey, I'll help anybody. I don't care. I'm not in it to make a ton of money and to go crazy. What it is I believe marketing should be like almost pay for performance. So you get with a business owner, you set up 5 goals. If you hit 3 of those goals, there's a monetary value for the marketing guy tied to each one of those goals. And that's how I personally believe and see how it's moving in the future, because right now a lot of marketers try to push things down small businesses or automotive places and keep you in a confused state where you don't know what's real, what's driving traffic, what's working, what's not. So, and the reason why you're not able to do that is because we're highly overstimulated. So not one thing drives traffic. It's a combination. There's multiple touch points on every business that drives customers or sales or service or anything like that.
Awesome, man. This is a fun topic because I want to talk about how people should hire a marketing agency. I had a client, he's a consultant coach type person in the construction world. Like he comes in and helps them dramatically grow their business, but really not from a marketing standpoint, more from an operations leadership standpoint type of coach consultant. And he recently was hiring an ad agency. And of course they typically are like, okay, here's the line items per line item. And I have a little bit of a beef with marketing agencies. because it's like you're saying, they're like, well, we did the work. And so therefore you owe us $5,000 a month. But like you said, sometimes just because they did the work doesn't mean that it yielded a result. And oftentimes it seems like the vast majority of marketing agencies don't have KPIs. They're not holding themselves accountable to those KPIs. They're only holding themselves accountable of, we wrote a blog post, or we published an ad, or like we did the thing, we did the service, but the KPIs don't matter. So how do you believe, or what do you believe like a business owner should do before hiring like a digital marketing agency?
So the first thing is, a lot of small business owners or businesses, they just don't know what they don't know, right? So they don't know that they need to own their Google My Business and have their Facebook ad account linked up in the business manager the right way. And so there's a lot of little things that you can do that you need to do as sort of a foundational aspect. You should have access to your own website to make changes, and so you want to look for someone that's pretty transparent. Another way to do is go to google.com/partners, and there'll be a list of marketing agencies that are actually certified with a lot of the Google certifications and stuff like that. So that's one way that you can check transparency on someone. The other way to check transparency is talk like it in this format, right? So I understand you're going to do some creative for me. I understand you're going to make some ads. How are we going to measure how effective that or how that affects my business, right? Because that individual making beautiful creative doesn't always yield results, right? The market decides what's good creative and what's not, what's good targeting, what's good, what's not. So you have to set that expectation with that marketing company is like, number one, we need to run some stuff to create a baseline. Number two, once we have that baseline that's in that industry, then we can say, all right, this is working better or worse, or, how are we driving this to the traffic? Do I have goals set up through analytics on my website for like a click to call, someone, contacting you if you have chat on your website? So you need basic goals set up. So for instance, like I have an auction company, right? And we're setting up goals for people who look at a certain lot within that auction, how many lot views each one of the items have, right? So, or how many of those people register to start bidding. So there's goals that you have to do there, because what tends to happen is goals and statistics and stuff like that aren't set up. So you can't make an accurate decision on ROI. And so you get into this like spot where you're scared to cancel because you don't know if it's going to drop your business off the cliff, or you're scared to add more money because you don't know if it's really working. And that's a tough position to get put in. So I think if a company comes in and shows you what foundations you need to set, and then brainstorms or problem solves for the goals where it's a one-on-one conversation, and helps you write goals as that initial process goes out. So, if it's a restaurant, you say, hey, you know what? I want to hit this much this month. I want to have this many takeout orders. I want to have this. I want to sell this much desserts. I need to make this gross profit to be profitable, right? And you have to have someone that understands how to write goals that pertain to marketing. And then that has to get translated into Google Analytics and your marketing, and everything has to link up properly. And that's very hard to find those type of people.
So is it as easy as going to the Google Partners place and finding them, or is there a different way of finding these right types of people?
Yeah, what I usually do, another way to find these type of people is Google who comes up first in marketing in your area. Because more than likely they're doing the practices on their own business, right? If you have a marketing company that comes in and they don't come up first in their own area, then either they're not, either it's just a one-off thing, or they're not using that on their own stuff. So that's important. I know you're a big proponent of that. I know that you've done so well in your business that they put you on some best business leader list that you didn't even know until after you were already on it, and they sent you an email. So look for people like that win stuff that they don't pay for. So awards that they don't pay for, There's a lot of contests that are gamed, so do a little bit of research around that if they start boasting about that kind of stuff. But if they're able to show you a plan for your business that's going to be successful and tied into your goals and show you how the KPIs are going to help you get to your goals, those are the people you want to have a conversation with.
Totally agree on the KPIs. I found that people who are willing to talk about KPIs, they're like usually the ones that are willing to walk with integrity when it comes to creative and marketing and services. They seem to be very transparent and totally work for the business owner and not necessarily just like, oh, we did the creative, so here's how much you owe us per month.
Yeah, and the other thing is like a lot of times off of freelance or Upwork, if you're having trouble creating KPIs, you can go pay on there and they'll help you come up with those, and they'll install Google Tag Manager, and they'll help you with your Google Analytics and stuff like that for way better rate a lot of times, right? So that's another way to where you can get some work, and they're rated on those places. So look for a couple places that are rated. Check out these guys' Google reviews. That's a big one too. Checking out Google reviews and seeing how people talk about them, right? If they have short reviews that are just like 3 words versus big paragraphs, if they have the big paragraphs, then you know that someone took it really personal and they really helped somebody out. So.
Now I'm going to circle back a little bit because you talked about like your personal brand that you've built, which is kind of like this kid from West Texas. Do you feel like that's helped you, like being you unapologetically, or do you feel like it's potentially, I don't know, closed some doors of opportunity because you're not creating a character that's playing at a certain level? Does that make any sense?
No, because I think I'd like for the character to be a little bit lower because I always like to underpromise and overdeliver. So I like the surprise factor because the amount of value you're able to provide when that happens, it's just so far beyond what people can understand a lot of times. So I'll come into a business and I'll look at this business and I'll say, all right, for instance, I got a example for a car dealership. So we had a car dealership that went through a buy sell, which means that they bought a dealership from another place, and he was having trouble getting his data that he had before of his customers. And this guy's a brand new owner, and he has a brand new internet person that runs his internet department. And so me being able to connect and be more relational, and then coming in and building that relationship, because I can't ask for commitment. I can't say, hey, give me all of your stuff so I can fix it. So I can't ask for a commitment greater than a relationship I've built with that person, right? So I think it gives me an angle to build a relationship, and using some of Jody's face reading techniques and some other things that I pick up on, I'm able to break down those barriers so that I can truly get to the root of the problem and help those people, which was that he wasn't getting his data. We came up with a solution for that. His leads from Honda wasn't even coming in properly, so he was missing out on customers that were searching on honda.com for him. And so we fixed a bunch of issues. We cut the budget $20,000 with my own company, like the company I work for. We cut the budget $20,000, and he sold more cars than he did last month.
Amazing.
And so he's completely happy. And now what we did is we cut it down to foundational stuff. And now we'll start to layer back on because we found a workaround to get all of the data. So we're waiting on the data to come back, and then we can start data mining through his database. And then we can start doing conquest stuff on top of that. Because the biggest thing that businesses miss is taking care of the people that you already have.
Yeah, dude.
It's so much more. It's so much more costly to acquire people than it is to take care of the people you have.
Yeah.
So,
what are some of the big mistakes that you've made when it comes to like building relationships?
Yeah, man, just taking things the wrong way. I have to really focus on listening because I have a lot of ADD. So I take a lot of natural stuff to really help me focus, and I constantly have to step outside of myself and see things from a dealership perspective, from the agency's perspective, from my own perspective, from the salesperson's perspective. So there's a lot of different perspectives within a car dealership to where you have to like step out of yourself. And even sometimes my wife, who's in the car business also, has to come in and say, no, you're wrong. You're making it too simple. It's a little more complicated than that. Because I tend to oversimplify stuff, and my brain's always in problem solving mode. So at certain times I have to ask myself, do I need to be in problem solving mode, or do I just need to listen and let them vent for a little bit? And I know you and I have talked about that a lot, because me and my wife went through that for a little while. Was, hey, I got to turn off my problem solving brain, and I have to turn on my, showing some empathy and listening, and it's a little difficult to do, especially when you solve problems all day.
Dude, it's funny. You had made a post about that maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. Maybe it's been longer. I don't know. Because apparently I thought you got married like last month and it's been a year. So my timelines are a little skewed. But I remember you made a post, and there were some people who were like kind of lighting you up a bit. They're kind of like, you can't be that black and white. And I was kind of like, yeah, he can. It works for him. You can totally be that black and white.
I mean, it's kind of like you say a lot, AJ, right? Is that's an agreement that we have, right? Yep. And so you set those agreements up and you say, all right, this is agreement, And so sometimes I'll like the other day, my wife had an issue at work and I solved it real quick in a text message. And I said, oh, autocorrect. What I meant to say was, did you want me to experience this, or do you want me to solve this problem? And she just busted out laughing, and it created like a break in what was going on with her. And then she just she took the advice that I gave her. So it turns into kind of like a joking thing, but after a while of asking that question, you start to realize and you start to tune in and get a little bit better of know when to use which one, right? You don't have to ask it as much. It's kind of like we also do a thing where if we're at a disagreement about something, we put a number on how important it is, right? And whoever has a higher number wins. Well, like sometimes she'll throw like a ridiculous number on something ridiculous just to make a joke in the situation, right? So then we realize like it's kind of stupid even to have this conversation. This is our answer. We just got it. So I think having those agreements, and it's the same thing with car dealerships or with the business, is setting up those agreements beforehand and just saying, you know what, this is what we're going to do if this happens. And if this happens, we're going to do it, or this is how we're going to handle this. And I really try to have an open line of communication to where if one of my dealers are upset, they can call me and say, hey, I'm upset, because a problem is just an opportunity to strengthen a relationship on how you handle that. Right.
So good. I have learned most people seem to avoid like what you're doing. Like they're afraid to be that vulnerable, right? Because they really like, there's one thing I really respect about you, which is like, you're just you. Like you genuinely care about people. You don't posture. You're just like, hi, I'm Brad Paschal. How you doing? Like you're fucking you. And as a result, like you live with your heart wide open, and it allows people to like connect with you, and you build those relationships quickly and deeply. And that's what yields to your business growing and word of mouth. And it's amazing. But unfortunately, so many people are afraid to live in that manner because they're afraid they're going to be dominated by the vulnerability it requires to live like that heart openedly, which is a weird way of saying that, but I know it makes sense. And being that intimate with people. So have you always just been that intimate with people and that comfortable, or has it been like a journey for you to be that way?
Yeah, it's definitely a journey, man, because it's a self-awareness thing, I mean, that's all it is. It's like, I know what I'm never going to be good at Photoshop. That's not how it is. So, it took me a long time to get to that spot. And the reason why is because when I was growing up, I was always really, really creative, but I didn't know what it was, I was always taught in the school system that I went to that you had to be artsy to be creative. And that's entirely not true. You can be creative in a million different ways. Matter of fact, most people are creative. You don't want to be creative in a Bernie Madoff sort of way, but you can be creative in problem solving. You can be creative in strategy. You can be creative in helping people, reach their goals. Or, the thing I've always been able to is tie whatever business objectives they are and talk to the people that are in the business and tie those business objectives back to whatever their motivation is, right? So saying something, I like to say wow factor stuff that people don't really, they're like, oh, wow. So this is crazy. So I was talking to a dealer the other day, and we had another guy on the call, and the dealer was asking if this was a Toyota rep, and he was asking, hey, is this co-op approved? Like, do I get money back if I do this program? And I go, no, but I'll pay for your setup fee. And the Toyota guy was like freaking out. But I had already set up to where the company was going to give us a free setup fee. But it was perception, because everything else that I talked about in that call, that dealer was going to remember, because I created that wow factor for him on that issue. So I think the biggest thing is, forget all of the nonsense and find out what you're creative. You hear what are you passionate about? What are you good at? But true happiness and true self-awareness comes when you find out what you're actually creative at and what you can innovate at. And when you start to innovate, because it's all within us to create, from procreation to creating all different sorts of stuff. It's in every single person. And so you have to find out what that lies with you, whether it's doing an app, whether it's painting, whether it's doing music. You've done a lot of stuff. You were a musician, and
Yeah.
you're a business coach, and I think you're creative in a lot of different areas, but some people are only creative in one or two areas. I can't play musical instruments to save my life, but my dad is a musician. So I think realizing that is just that's the key to finding what you would call your core power, is when you start to realize, like, I'm never going to be an organized person, but I can use people around me to help with that. I can use systems and technology to help with that and overcome those weaknesses and overlap that. And that way I can focus on getting better at what I really am really good at, which
Awesome.
means having an app that pulls in all the most accurate information that's going on in the digital world, which is Feedly. You can pull in almost anything from that app. Any sort of industries, any sort of news, any sort of stuff that's going on, you can pull it in from the app and set up feeds to have information. So I think continually sharpen that creativity and getting to that point of innovation where you're like, all right, the car business isn't that much different than my dad's massage therapy business. All right. It's the same concept. How can I reverse engineer what I use in the car business to fit this business? What are some things I can take from the massage business that I can implement into the car dealership? And so starting to think that way, that's when you get into that mindset, when you hit that, when you find out and you're in tune with your creativity. So
I'm just curious, for those who are a coach, they're a course creator, that's like kind of their business model, that we're a little bit, what is something that you do? Maybe it's Feedly, maybe it's something different in the auto industry that would apply to a coach, a course creator, that may give them an edge. Any ideas?
yeah, so the thing that we do in the auto industry that's interesting is that we have like feeds that go out everywhere, like inventory feeds that go out everywhere. And we have different software for all different sorts of stuff, right? And so they're constantly updating that software, and they're constantly updating that feed. And for instance, there's something that's really easy transferable from the auto industry to the housing industry. So it's like, in the auto industry, for every $1,000 that a car is, you should take one picture, right? They don't do that in the housing industry. It's probably $5,000. For every $5,000 you should take a picture, but they don't take that many pictures. They don't put photo overlays over the pictures with the contact information. So there's a lot of little things that you can take from each industry. I would probably need a little bit to dive a little bit more on course creation, but I've taken a lot of Google Analytics courses and a lot of courses in my life, and I know a lot of these guys like certificates and stuff like that. So actually, funny story. So car guys love like awards and stuff like that. So even if you had like a course creation that had a assessment at it or different things on the end of it, giving out awards for the top ones in each tier, that's something that's totally different. Whether you do that and you gave out $100 gift card or award, or we're in West Texas, so if you shoot in the sporting clay tournament, you get a belt buckle, right?
Sure.
So So stuff like that, where it hits their internal award system, right?
Totally.
That's something that brings people back and has people talking, because what's going on in marketing right now is we are ridiculously overstimulated as humans, and you have to realize that. And the only thing that makes marketing successful is invoking emotion in some way, right? And when you invoke that emotion, you gain attention. So it's an exchange. You have something that creates emotion. That emotion is exchanged for attention. And then that attention, depending on the level, creates some sort of conversion. So it's a evolving equation at how much attention it takes to get a conversion, because our attention spans get shorter every day, right? So when I first got in the car business, they would say, hey, there's 12 different touch points that happen before they buy a car. The last time I saw it, there's 43 different touch points, and that's in 8 years. So you realize how many brands we come in contact with. So I think having that in mind, creating something that creates emotion within that course at the end of each one to sustain attention is definitely something that I would add in there.
And I'd also add, and I'm not definitive on about what I'm about to say, but it's just a thought. Because I would agree that the marketplace is getting noisier and it's going to take more and more touch points, and science is backing that up. And I think there's another paradox to this, or the other side of the equation, is the more conscious and the more awake your target market is, the less touch points it takes, because they actually have the capacity to hold space and to be with you. And it's almost like the more awake and the more conscious your target market is, the more like in tune with their emotion that you're creating content to feed, the more you're probably going to create trust and respect with that target market quicker, because they're there. Like for me, I just think the way I buy on trust and respect. And so if I can meet you and I can look you in your eye, whether it's either virtual or in person, and if I can feel, because I can feel if you genuinely care about me, if you can solve my problem, I'm done. I'm like done. It could be one touch point, it could be 2 touch points, right? But there has to be like this level of certainty and this mutual like level of trust and respect that just is. And so potentially, if your market is like super conscious and super awake, then there is another option where it actually may take less touch points. What are your thoughts?
That's because most of the touch points now are digital. So in-person touch point can be much more valuable, because you have a lot more different tools for communication than you would in a digital world, right? Because they can see you, they can shake your hand and feel you, they can catch the whatever the aura or the vibe that you're putting off in person much better than they can whenever you're over video or you're doing a commercial, or if it's just your voice, right? So you lose some of that, they lose some of that gut integrity type, kinesthetic type feeling when it's not in person. When it's in person, then you have a little bit more at your advantage, because you're able to show, hey, I have a heart and actually care, and I want to help you. And it tends to take the the walls that they have built up down as a lot quicker that way, especially if you can talk in the same communication style that they are.
Totally.
Whether they're a kinesthetic or they're a visual person or they're an auditory person, if you're able to identify that and you start to talk in those language patterns, it just melts it. It's so easy. So if I was selling a car to a kinesthetic person, I would say, do you feel this? Do you feel that? Can you see this? Can you feel that? Can you feel that? Because they're a touch person. If I was talking to an auditory person, I would say, hey, do you hear how that sounds? Do you hear the sound system? Do you hear this? And visual, we would say, hey, do you see yourself driving this? Do you see this would be safer for your kids? And so whenever you talk in those language patterns on how they learn, it can just melt that stuff down, which is a lot easier to do in person. So.
Yeah. Have you found a way to do that digitally to find which is their learning method?
If I can see them, yeah, because I can do the face reading that Jody has, so it's pretty easy. There's like a 3-piece one where you can do, and you can melt it down pretty quick. But the important aspect of that is have those 3 aspects if you're doing courses. So where they have to physically move the mouse and do that, where it's really good, where the audio is really good, and then also making sure that it's visually stimulating for the visual people. So if you hit those 3 things, just remember that that's the 3 way people learn. I'm
Totally.
a kinesthetic guy where I have to be hands-on and have to do it myself, but not everybody's like that. So
Totally, 100%. And let's talk about face reading a little bit. You've mentioned it like 3 times now. So Jody Holland, he was on the podcast, episode number 8 is what I had in my notes. So episode number 8, if you want to check out Mr. Jody Holland. So what did you learn about face reading? I think a lot of people think face reading, that's some like psychic new age bullshit. Like, what are you talking about face reading? So how has it changed the game for you? What the hell is it? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so it changed the game for me just as a car sales guy when I met Jody. It's pretty easy. So basically, there's really a couple of features that you look for on a person, okay? The first thing that you look for is ears, right? So if you see ears that are turned inside out like this, where this inner ear ridge is much more defined, that's a kinesthetic person. So they learn hands-on, right? If they have larger ears that are out from the head like that, that's an auditory person. So they learn by listening. If they have smaller ears that are kind of pinned back but no inner ear ridge, then that's a visual person. And so you can tell how that person communicates based on that. And then the second part is looking at the chin structure. So if they have a squared off chin, that means they're driven by goals and accomplishments. If they have a rounded chin, they just want people to like them, right? And then the last one is the forehead. So if you look at the side, whenever you have a flat forehead, they use logic to make decisions. If they have a rounded forehead, they make decisions more on emotions. So if you have a kinesthetic person that usually goes by their gut, that has a rounded forehead and a squared off chin, he's going to use his kinesthetic gut. He's going to see how he feels about the situation and then back it up with logic to make sure that it fits in his goals.
Nice.
So you can combine those 3 in different ways. And the best example that I've found that I came up with is the old man off of Up, right? He has a squared off chin, he has a flat forehead, and he has these big old auditory ears, right? And he's going to get the house to the falls no matter what, right? Like, he's not going to be deterred because he's logical, driven by goals and accomplishments. He doesn't want people to like him. He just wants to get the thing done. And then you have the little boy who's a Boy Scout, and he has a rounded chin, and he has a rounded forehead, and he just wants people to like him. That's all he wants is the little old man to like him. And that's how he measures success, and that's how he goes through life. And so that's an oversimplified version of it, but it's a good way to kind of break barriers down really, really, really quickly and get to the root of the problem and effectively communicate.
So good. So what am I? You can't see my chin. I'll tell you it's squared because it's covered up with a pointy beard. So that's deceptive. And then I think my ears, they're I think they're visual.
Yeah, you're kind of in between visual and kinesthetic. So another thing that's a little more advanced is half of your face is work and half of your face is home. So it can actually be different on each one. And Jody's even correlated it with like 5 love languages and disc profile. And he has a whole training course that we helped develop through Kajabi where you can go through and learn all of it. You can tell a lot more stuff. You can also tell almost every serial killer will have a pointy chin, and they'll have the iris cut off halfway, right? And they'll have like 3 little lines here or really, really aggressive jawbones. And that means they're disillusioned with the reality. They don't care what people think is the pointed chin. And then that they're very aggressive. So
you ever run across any of those during your sales days?
you can think of Timothy McVeigh as a perfect example of that. Or if you take it into cartoon world, if you think of Jabbar off of Aladdin, That's exactly what he writes. It looks like. So that science is called physiognomy, and Disney uses it to draw every single cartoon character they draw.
So good. So good.
So,
Amazing, dude. What if you could go back in time? Actually, I want to circle back. So do you use face reading, like reading people's profile pictures when you're, doing reach outs and lead gen and setting up sales calls, or only when you're talking to people?
everything I do, I use it. So if it's setting up sales calls, if it's seeing if I get a new dealership that I'm going to be calling on, then I do that. And you can look for different clues and say, all right, man, this person's going to be easy to deal with, or not easy to deal with, or they're going to be, this is how I need to present this in this way, or this is the type of report that I need to run in that way. So I use it in pretty much everything. I believe that one of the things that we do nowadays, like let's say if you have a sales call or someone come in, is we don't take enough time to do a little bit of research and context building about that person. And we think that the fastest person always wins, when it's really the deepest connection always wins, right?
Yep.
So I think it's a different mindset, because we've been taught, hey, smash these people in the mouth. You got to make 60 phone calls. You got to make this. You got to make that. When you can take the Gary Vee type approach and go way deeper and learn everything about everybody before they come in. And there's a good video of Gary Vee versus Grant Cardone on this. This is amazing. So if you Google or YouTube Gary Vee versus Grant Cardone, you'll see the same exact thing that I kind of implement on my own. And then just pulling that in and using it very carefully, because ultimately that stuff is used to lower barriers so that you can actually help people. So your heart has to be in the right spot, number one, right? We know that. But if your heart's in the right spot, you can use these to effectively help people. And then these people become friends for life, and customers for life. And you develop way deep connections to where you can start to talk about those hard things, whether they have a process and their business is broken, that you see it's broken and they don't really see it because they're too close to it. You built that relationship and you laid that foundation on the relationship level to have that conversation. And that's when you're truly, truly, truly going to make changes that are going to help people, and that it's going to be exponential. And what you're going to find out is people are just going to, I get calls from all over the place on a weekly basis from people that I don't even know, just asking questions and asking for help. And the networks that you'll build, you'll definitely use later on, because I built networks with people that I just helped that was just another person, and now they're a CEO of a company, right? So
Yep, totally, man. And if you could go back in time and give your younger self some wisdom to help Brad Paschal collapse some time and get results faster, what do you think you'd tell him, man?
Yeah, I really think that I would tell him about the creative stuff, man. Like, that's preached so bad in school, in education, that you can be creative in different ways. And, a lot of kids struggle with that, because it's a tough thing. You're pushed to be good at sports, and you're pushed to be good at different things and extracurricular activities. And sports have even expanded since I've been in school, where you're playing spring ball and fall ball and this ball. And so I think letting them know that it's okay to explore how you're creative, and parents embracing that creativity, right? So it's kind of like, if you want to learn more about something like that, you would definitely want to look at like Neil deGrasse Tyson. He has a good video about thinking versus knowledge. And then the second thing is be a problem solver and figure things out, because with how schools are set up right now, we have multiple choice tests and we have all the answers. And if it's not the answer, if it's not the right answer, it's not a good answer. And so, there's a saying that Dr. Justin O. Smith said, right? Is that old scientists don't make new discoveries. It's the young scientists that challenge the status quo, that come in, that old scientists are trying to hold on to the discoveries that they made, right? So, keep that young mindset of where you can problem solve and be creative. I think that's the most important thing. Is I have to work twice as hard to stay up with these 20-year-old kids because they're growing up with all this technology. So I have to spend an hour in the morning every day keeping up with it to try to stay up with them because it moves so rapidly.
So fast.
And if you're a month behind, you're 2 years behind. So it's I think that's important. That's a good question to ask too. Is, hey, where do you get your information from? What sources do you look at? If they're able to answer that question, then you know that they're continually they're trying to get better continually. What conferences do you go to? How do you refill your cup, right? So how do you refill your marketing knowledge? Which places do you go to get a refresh, And that's questions that no one ever asks a marketing company. And
Awesome,
those
brother.
are good questions. So.
And if people want to reach out to you, maybe they want to, I don't know, hire you for a consultant or like figure out, hey, what should I even ask somebody before I hire my agency? How can you help them? Where should they go to learn more about you and what you can do to help them?
Yeah, that's fine. If it's our automotive dealership, I work for Stream Company, so we'd be more than happy to look at everything for you. My email there is brad.paschal, Paschal, at streamcompanies.com. If it's a non-automotive business, you can email me at brad at bradpaschal.com, Paschal. So you can email me there. You can go to the website and submit something through there. That's okay too. Or if you just want to text or call or find me on Facebook, I'm pretty easy to find. It's just Brad Paschal. My phone number is 806-548-2468. And if you're having website issues and you need a second eye on it, since you're listening to AJ, I'll do an audit for you for free. And it'll be highly technical because the architecture of websites is way more important than what you actually put on them a lot of times. And I'll give you one more little freebie because I always like to give a little bit of extra before we go. So if you're having trouble creating content, because historically a lot of us are really terrible at writing, especially me, write a list of questions out and voice record the answers and then go back and type it out. Because a lot of us can explain what we do in our business and we get a lot more passionate about doing that. And so just voice record it, go back and type it out. And Google loves that conversational content where you're not trying to keyword stuff it or put a bunch of stuff in it. So that's the easiest way to create content for any sort of platform is just voice record it and then go back and type it out.
Awesome. Well, Brad, thank you so much for being here, brother. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. It was a blast.
Well, there you have it, my friend Brad Paschal in the building. That was a fun episode. I love that we could chat it up about the UFC, about crazy things like face reading, and also dive into some marketing and sales and just things around being an amazing, fun, incredible human being. So lots of fun stuff on this episode. I hope it served you. If it inspired you in some way, I'd love to hear about it. I really love to know what your biggest takeaway was. Simply take a screenshot of you listening on your device, post it over to your Instagram stories, and just tag me at AJ Amix. And you can also tag Brad at bpaschal45. So it's at bpaschal, Paschal 45. So just tag me and Brad over on Instagram. Thank you so much for being here. That's going to do it for this episode of the Anthony John Amix podcast. Until next time, my friend, I'm out. Peace.
Well, that's all I've got for this episode of the Anthony John Amix podcast, but we have plenty more to help you become unstoppable in life and business. So head on over to ajamix.com for exclusive resources, information, and tools to help you break through to a new level of freedom, purpose, and success. I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Bye for now.